This meeting is being recorded.
Ooh, and we are live. Brittany Farrow. I said that right? Awesome. Girls Can Frame. So that's super exciting. I saw you on Manny's podcast and I listened to the whole thing front to back, no problem.
Really?
Oh,
I'm still
yeah.
working through it.
Oh, yeah, really? It's typically it's taken over my music. Between podcasts and audiobooks, that's all I'm ingesting. It's pretty crazy, unless I'm at the gym, and then it's obviously music.
Well, you gotta motivate yourself, so.
Well, right, yeah, you're just listening to two people talk monotone at the gym, it'd be crazy. So that's a lot of fun. Wow, I don't even know where to get started. I've got so many little notes. You just got back from Vegas.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
It was amazing.
So I'm going to Vegas next month.
Are you?
Yeah, so Build 23 used to be in Texas, basically the drywall version of what you just went and did. Like you did the entire, right? What is
Yes.
what is it called?
It's I think it's like NAHB, but it's the International Build Show.
Right. You see, I would have loved to go to that one. Like I missed the whole carpenter side of all of this with my Instagram because it's all kind of been geared towards like taping and drywall and that kind of stuff.
It's hard once you start it to kind of like find everything. It just starts with what you're like liking at first or what you post, and then it expands after a while.
Yeah, it's starting to do that now. It's not all just taping. When my threads come up, I'm like, oh look, there's other things. Like RR Building and JP. I've followed them for a long time, but that's kind of it. I've got a couple of friends from before that are carpenters, but yeah. What are you working on right now?
So right now I'm doing repairs actually because I took on a job with a contractor because I just wanted to take a step back from the business. So literally I'm just fixing everyone's mistakes.
I literally did that for 2 years.
Really?
Yeah. So I won't say who the builder was, but they used to do Mattamy Homes. So they'd take on like 200 or 300 houses. And he brought me in. He found me on wherever it was, not Kijiji, but like Workopolis or whatever it was that had my resume. Yeah. And he sat me down. And he said, I've got really good framers and I've got really bad framers. And he was like, your job is going to be for the bad framers. So I guess when they're doing the houses, they'll hold back their 10% and they'll say, do you want to come and do your deficiencies or do you just want to start the next house? And the guys would typically start the next house and I'd be given a file of everything that was wrong. And I loved it. It was such a crash course in figuring things out.
Oh, yeah.
Are you finding that?
Yes. So I actually did kind of repairs on my first crew. So there was like a lot of mess ups when you had like more new people. I found that too, that there's a lot more mess ups. So I would kind of fix everything then. So I didn't mind it. But now because like I'm really good at fixing that kind of stuff, it's easy. But you can see the quality of the framers in certain areas that we're working, and it's not the best. I kind of feel bad for the homeowners.
Yeah, it's a big part of that. When it's not your crew, it doesn't hurt as bad. But you do walk through like, oh my God, like, how did you think that this would pass? I walked into a chain of, I think it was a block of 4 townhouses. And in the second townhouse, the envelope said reframe second floor as per plans. Like it wasn't even specific. They were like, this whole thing's fucked.
Oh my God.
And that was not as typical to be that crazy, but it was all like point loads and truss repairs. And the plumber comes through and cuts through the floor joist with a chainsaw and you got to do all the packing.
There's been like beams in the wrong spot. They miss hangers. They mess up the layouts. They put the joist on the wrong center. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'm here to fix things. It's fine.
Well, and so are you being paid hourly for that, or is it like a package price? Yeah, great.
It's hourly, but it's fine because like I'm on the books as an employee for someone, but it's way less work. I'm like 7:30 to 5, and then I can actually clock out instead of having my phone go off 24/7.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with it because I really just needed a break. But I like it. It's fun actually doing it.
Sometimes you just need to take a deep breath, right? Like it sounds like you've been very busy. you know what I mean? So it's to take on something hourly. You don't have to kill yourself to get it done today. It would be nice for someone else if you did. But I mean, if you just want to take your time, do the work, and then just go home, turn your phone off, you can do that. It's I
That's exactly it. Like I try to still rush it through, or not rush and like mess up, but like rush and like I'm not dilly-dallying. Like I don't like doing that. I like to just push and like go and work hard, and I'm just not that kind of person to be like relaxed about it. But I don't have to get it done. If something goes wrong, you're not that upset because you're like, okay, let's just take a step back. It's fine. But with your own company, like you need to find all the workers, you need to fix
mhm.
all their mistakes. You're only getting paid for the job, not for hours. It's a lot more. And now because I'm taking that step back and doing hourly work, I can go home. I can focus on my social media more. I
Yeah,
can take on side jobs. I can focus on my family. So it's a lot easier and a lot less stressful.
it's way less stressful.
Yeah.
And whenever I worked hourly, I kind of felt like it was like sharpening your tools too a little bit, right? Where you can take the time to figure out how to do things perfectly, as
Mhm.
opposed to like, God, I got to get this done today.
Exactly.
Because even though the quality that's coming out is like passable, for a lot of years it wasn't like what I would consider my quality is now.
Oh,
Um,
100%. The last year for me that I was in the business, because I was literally rotating through employees, I was like, I'm embarrassed by this. Like it's passing, but it could be a lot better and it should be
yeah.
a lot better because I know myself, but I can't get employees to work or do it right. So I was like, I can't.
Well, and keeping them's a nightmare. Uh,
Yes.
we're finding that too. Like I kind of did the same thing, believe it or not. A headhunter approached me like a year and a half into my business and said, you know, can we have you from X amount of time a day and we'll pay you a salary contract?
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely. But like it's a big salary. So they like it's been great. So instead of trying to kill myself all the time, I can take on little jobs, really focus on them on the side. You know, the Instagram's taken off. I've been able to start the podcast. It's um I do find that I miss running the show though a little bit, right?
I know. Because
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I was the big boss, and now you're like, oh, I have to answer to people again.
right.
But the blame doesn't fall on you then.
That,
Because
that
like if something's going on and the company's having like a little thing, goes to the boss and you're like, ah, you deal with my boss. It's not me.
one of my favorite responses is, you know, like when they're talking about that kind of stuff, it's like it's kind of not my company. I'm treating it that it is, but I don't have to. Like I'm doing you a favor here. And it's such a great response, especially when it's true. I think there's a lot of guys out there that talk a lot of shit, but it's with this like so essentially I'm a site super. Um, we have gone through five in the amount of time that I've been there. It's a revolving door.
Oh
And
my God.
and you kind of hear what the resumes were, right? Because everybody talks. And then you get to know the guys on site, and then you kind of get the real story. One of them was a bartender that did
Oh my,
a bartender who did a basement or two basements or something, and
and
decided
they call themselves
he
a
could be
contractor.
a site super, not even a contractor. It
Oh
was
my
yeah,
God.
yeah, it's hilarious. But I do kind of get that, like what you were talking about. It's almost embarrassing, right? Where because it's
Yeah.
like, you know, this is me, this is like my job title, and you're like, God, guys, you're not very good at this.
Yeah, because
Um,
it's your name with the business. Like you're like, wow, this is bad quality and this is my name, not your name. So can we fix this a little bit?
mhm. So when you were taking on framing jobs, were you like I kind of saw like a couple double townhouses and things like that, and you just do it ground up, like one unit at a time, or would you take like a section at a time?
So if I've done it a few times that I either do like 2 units if I'm stick framing or I was doing panels. So I did like the full, it was I think a block of 7 townhouses. And you
Wow.
just start and you go floor by floor through the whole thing because it's
Hmm.
easier to build it all at once and go up together rather than like unit by unit. It's
That
just
makes
more
sense.
structurally sound. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and then you've got like a proper floor, and then and you've got all that space to work too. When you start at the one side
exactly.
and you're doing a few, you've got all that staging area.
Hmm.
Yeah, not too
You can put
bad.
everything in one unit to set you up while building a different unit so you're not kind of on top of everything.
Hmm. So were you doing back framing and stuff too, or just framing the houses?
I was mostly framing. There was a few jobs that kind of included back framing that I had to do. Now I'm kind of like back framing, repairs,
Hmm.
some side work, but it was mostly just like framing, standard framing.
That's that part of my life. I had a blast doing it.
It's so fun.
Like so when I learned how to. Uh, I'm a commercial framer, so I'm a steel guy. And then when I went from that to wood, you kind of get into like custom homes and like really fun stuff, right? Everything's
Yeah.
just squares in the commercial kind of sector, right? So I learned how to like build houses and do the roof and floor joists and that kind of stuff. When I started doing the repairs, I didn't even know back framing was a thing. Like I knew that it
Really?
was because obviously it's around, but I mean I never
Yeah.
saw it happen. And I was getting so quick with my uh, deficiency manuals or whatever they were giving me that I was running out of work. And I'm like, I'm not going to slow down. Like that's not going
Yeah.
to have, so go find me more work or I'll go find me more work. And they started
Really?
letting me back frame houses and it was a fucking blast.
It's
Uh,
so cool doing
just
it.
making 8 foot, um, 8 foot bulkheads, putting them in place, put your square up,
Yep.
shoot it. Like I got fast too. Like after a couple of houses, it's like, take your 2 or 3 measurements and then you're off to the races, right?
Yeah, it's so easy and it's like less strenuous than full framing, but you're still framing at that point.
Hmm.
So a lot of fun back framing. It's just I haven't had the time to like do it a lot.
Yeah. Um, yeah, getting up into I'm trying to think of what they're called, baffles in the ceiling. Um,
Oh yeah.
they were a pain in the ass. And then the attic hatch, because I'm enormous, right? And they wanted these little tiny attic hatches. I think they wanted like two
Yep.
feet by 18 or something like that. It was not very
I
big.
think ours are it's like 20 inches inside by I think they're doing 30 inches now. I literally
See,
built one today.
yeah, I could fit through that. Yeah, when there were truss repairs and stuff and you had to climb up through it was all seemed very sketchy when it was just little like that.
I
um
love it.
well, of course, yeah. uh are you doing any truss repair stuff? Like do they still come with a package and it yeah, awesome.
Yeah, we have
it,
some if like trusses are broken, we got to go do
mhm,
the engineer report, or if there's like webbing that's missing or T-bracing. I was doing that again today too, but I love that kind of stuff, even though it is sketchy.
mhm.
It's like testing your boundaries a little bit. It's kind of fun.
I used to say if your ass isn't puckering up once a week, right? You're not really giving her.
Yeah,
And being up in the like there, I have no business being up in the rafters of a home, right? And when you're up there like kicking ass, you feel super cool. Like at least I always did.
right?
Or you're just like nobody's even ever gonna come up here again. You like leave little notes or whatever. Yeah, I always thought that was really interesting too, where they were like, go get 3/4 inch ply, cut it at this size, we want this nail pattern, and you were like, this is awesome. Yeah, I really
I
enjoyed
know.
it.
I literally say that like doing framing is like an adult jungle gym because you have to like climb everywhere, weird things. It's difficult, but it's a great time.
Well, and when you're doing fixes, you're just taking a sawzall, cutting the nails out of the top and bottom of something, and then
Mhm.
readjusting it. It's not that big of a deal. Uh,
No, it's super easy.
yeah, that kind of portion of my career like taught me so much about how there's no finite or no not finite, but like nothing's in cement other than like the foundation, of course. But I mean, you can fuck things up and just fix them. Like there
Yep.
is no the sky is falling until you get
Yeah, it's
into
like
the
calm
other
down.
bigger stuff. But yeah.
Some of the bigger repairs, it's harder, but it's still possible to fix.
Hmm.
It just takes longer. That's all it is.
Yeah, when you're saying beams out of place, that would be an undertaking.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Like they're usually not too far. It's just that you have to adjust certain things to make it s- good. I don't know.
Makes
Like if it's like we'll like adjust a wall if the beam's in the wrong spot so that it actually catches or
nice.
nothing too. It's not a big deal.
That understanding of how structure works, I don't think you get that um outside of framing like you do when you're framing. Like
Yeah.
you watch a beam go in the first time and you're like, okay, what's that for? And then when the house is done, you're like, oh, I know exactly what that's for. that's carrying
Yep.
this and that's moving that. And
I
yeah,
know. And like some of the engineer drawings or the architectural, you're like, I think they need to come on site and see what is actually going on. Because sometimes it's overkill, sometimes it's just off a bit. It can be anything, but I think they honestly need a little bit of time on site
mhm.
just to see what we have to do.
Everybody that you kind of talk to says that there should be mandatory time on site. And I feel like it's true. Like if you're a marine biologist, never been in the water, like you're not going to do a very good job. Like you can learn whatever you want out of the book, but like functionally, it's
Oh
hard
yeah,
to figure that stuff out.
I
The
know.
first, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that was
Oh,
it. That was it. Just I know.
uh, the guy that taught me was 65 years old. He didn't want to run anything. He didn't want to own a business. He was a Red Seal guy, like the best carpenter I ever met kind of deal. And the first time that he had a conversation with an engineer and proved him not wrong, but like we're doing it this way because it's right.
Yeah,
And it worked. I was like,
it-
it was all part of that. Like you have a say if you know what you're doing. And I think that's fun. I don't think a lot of the other trades get to do that. Like your mechanical has to be the way that it is.
yeah,
Um,
because there's certain codes and everything, but framing, you can do something like a billion different ways and they'll still have the same product.
yeah, it's crazy, eh?
Yeah,
Ah.
I know. It's also a little weird that we build the structure of the house and we don't need to go to school for it.
I've thought of that so many times in my career where I'm like I have like 9 high school credits. School was not for me at all. I just like got to work and kind of realized you put in the effort, right? You can kind of do whatever you want. But there's a lot of times in my career where I'm like, this is like I have no education in this. I've just done it a lot. And
Yeah.
God knows the guy that taught me even had an education. They're probably not, right? It's
No, it's all on-site training.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy that we build the house and then drywallers and finishers finish it, and there's zero education, there's zero like
Yep.
double checking. And I guess there's a lot of like framing inspections and stuff, but it's I don't know. I feel like it's not that intense, right?
No, and even some of the inspectors don't totally know what they're looking for either, so certain things get a little messed up and they don't notice.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, this needs a little bit of fixing. This is not good." But they don't see it.
Uh, so I might have been there for like 2 months, and the guy that I was reporting to was the site super for the site. There was only one of me, and I was kind of there to help him because it sounded like he was the guy doing the repairs
Mhm.
prior. And he walked once we kind of like started to respect each other a little bit. He was was so fast. Like yeah, it would probably be like if I met myself now back then.
Mhm.
But he took me through a house and he was just like, okay, I want you to show me on your thing where what needs to be done here. I said, okay. And he goes, and an inspector did that, right? I said, yes.
Yeah.
And then he took me to the top and he walked me down the whole house and we picked 4 or 5 things out that the inspector missed. And he was just like, this should be like that. It might pass, but that's not how we do things. And this should be there and this is incorrect. And you're like, nobody's perfect. So it was this big like keep your eye out. And then it was like a game to see if they missed anything. But it very rarely happens. But yeah, it was cool. I loved it.
It's kind of fun like seeing what they miss and you're like, "Oh, well you missed this." And like you like add it to the list or you go through and you're like, "Well, I have a list of just like a frame check from the site super and they missed a lot, so I'm going to be coming back in like a week if I don't just do this now."
Yeah. Well, and there's this thing of like if somebody's missed something and then you've been through the house and then you hand it in and then it gets found later, it's never that they missed it. It's that you missed it.
Yep.
Right. So there's this like moment of you're always kind of double checking yourself. How are you with heights?
I love heights.
Oh, I do not like heights. Yeah,
I
okay.
used to on my first crew walk on like the second floor, third floor walls, not harnessed off at all. Sometimes my like it's like I guess he's my supervisor, but we're he's just kind of like, he has the list and then he gives it to me.
Hmm.
But he always gets mad at me about stuff. He's like, why are you up in the trusses right now? I was like, because it's easier to do it this way than bringing out a ladder.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
okay. I haven't died yet.
that's the other thing. Like, I was such a big, coming from the commercial world, I was such a pain in the ass about safety, which is good. But Albert hated that. That old guy that I learned from, I was like, you need
Yeah.
to get a harness on. He jumped down the one time and he put it on and he walked around and he was like kicking the rope and it was tied around his feet. He's like, this is going to kill me. I'm
Mhm.
good. Right. And hopped back up there and was confidently walking around like he'd been doing it his whole life. And it was like, some people just can do it. And it's
Mhm.
just like watching, I think it's JP Ontario Framer. He's like on the
Yeah.
very, very top of enormous houses. And he's like, walking around doing a video. Like some of us can't do that on the concrete floor without stepping on something or kicking something. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah. I was trained by like an old school Italian that literally did not believe in any of the safety stuff. So my first job for like 3 years, we didn't wear harnesses, we didn't wear hard hats, nothing. We were so unsafe, but I got used to it, so I was fine with it.
Yeah, I look back now, like when I started in the commercial world to get onto the roof, we used to have these enormous cherry pickers, like a skyjack. And it would have
Yeah.
4 feet that'd go down and then you'd head up, but it was huge. It was like 8 by 10 or whatever on the platform. We used to step over that rail onto the roof of the building, and that was how we were getting up and down because it took too much time to do the stairs or whatever. And I think of that now, sitting here as a site super, I would kill someone if they did that on my site. And it was like how we did things. It's crazy the stuff that you get away with, and like looking back on it, you'll be like, wow.
I know. I'm supposed to be one of like the safety people on site now too, so I'm supposed to watch out for everyone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so I have to be an influence. I can't do this.
Yeah. You got to do something, you're like, maybe not.
Maybe on a weekend.
So you started at 17.
Yes.
That's intense.
I know. It was a lot, but I started through a high school co-op. So
Hmm.
I like went through, it was a construction-based co-op, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I want to do framing, or I want to do construction, but like I didn't know what. And then they chose framing for me, and obviously they were right. So I
Totally.
did good.
Some people will just do things very well. Like in when you're building things, it just,
Mhm.
if it makes sense in your brain, you probably would have been great at anything. Framing is definitely the best one though. It's the
Oh,
funnest one
100%.
to learn, because you kind of get to see everything, right? Like
Mhm.
when I was doing drywalling, I got to see actually everything because I would frame it, then all the guts would go in, and then I would board it. So you
Oh,
you
that's
kind of
cool.
you kind of got to see everything. But yeah, framing a house is wicked.
Well,
So
you're always learning
yes.
because it's never that like codes change or like you get new designs or anything. You're always learning something.
Well, and there's always different situations that come up too, right? Where you'll have a beam uh, in a certain position, and you're not sure why, or is it big enough, or different, like hurricane clips. What the fuck is that for? The first time that I saw it, I thought it was ridiculous, and you're like, oh, I get it. And different situations, and the tools are always changing, so then the method
Yeah.
of the way that you're doing things are changing.
Oh
um
yeah.
you've got a couple of pictures of like a big hammer gun, like an enormous air compressor gun. Are you still using air compressors?
It depends what I'm doing. So with my repairs, I have like the cordless pass loads, but then when
Hmm.
I'm framing, I have almost every kind of nail gun. So I have
Hmm.
Metabo, Crisp-Air, Bisset, and pass load. Um, it's kind of based on what I'm doing to based on what gun I use because the Bisset's really light, so anything overhead is really nice. But
Hmm.
if I'm doing something that kind of needs like a little more weight to it, like nailing a floor off, I'll use like the Crisp-Air or the pass load because they're a little bit heavier. But I have
Yeah,
like a bad so anything above my head, I need a little bit lighter stuff.
that's all right. I'd like to
Yeah.
mention to everyone that she didn't say fucking DeWalt or Milwaukee, because they're
No,
they're
not for
not
nail
very
gun.
good at all.
I like DeWalt for like my saws, but
Oh
not for
yeah.
my
I don't know what they didn't figure out with that gun. When I was doing that, I just had hundreds of feet of cable because I would get those DeWalt guns and they would be toast. Like you were just constantly breaking them.
That's what I've heard about them, so I decided never to try it, but I don't think they put a lot of effort into the gun because they're more known for their saws and
Mhm.
drills and everything. So I don't think they really care too much about their gun.
And it's got like a centrifuge feeling to it. Like it winds up and then whacks. If you hold that down and turn your wrist like this, it's got this like spin to it.
Oh,
So it's a very weird mechanism. The Milwaukee, that's what I have. So I'm talking shit to me. Uh, but I like it. It hits hard. But when I've got the big battery in that, because that's what I use with it, because I can run it all day.
yeah.
Kind of. It's pretty heavy. So it's not like I'm winning or losing when it comes to the weight of it. Um, it's just not having the hose, right? But yeah,
Yeah. I
I
like the pasta because it's lighter, but you go through a lot of gas. Not like a lot, but a lot.
yeah, and enough to make it expensive. That was the
Yeah.
currency way back when is like because I was working under the site super, so we would have like a case of couple boxes of extra nails or a couple of gas canisters, right? And you would like ask framers for, just, do you want to do me a favor over here for a minute? And then you'd give them a box of nails or something, or like it was really cool. It was kind of like the cigarettes in prison years ago, right? You're like, oh, I got a gas thing here. So I want to ask you about the high school thing. We're
Mhm.
kind of starting to look into that in the drywall community now because there's nobody teaching anything, and like a lot of the guys learning are being taught, in my opinion, incorrectly. Uh,
Yeah,
so
I can agree with that.
yeah, so I think we're going to start kind of trying to do something like that, incorporate the newest products, and just like send you out there properly from the get-go. Do you find that did, now looking back, a service for you, or if you had just kind of started it on your own, would you have been better off?
I honestly think I preferred the co-op
Yeah,
because I got the opportunities that I did because I started through the co-op.
right.
But you're also starting, so technically, if you're doing the high school co-op around here where I am, it's like you don't get paid to work.
Yeah,
You
you're
have to
not
do it for
supposed to.
free. Yeah, I did,
Yeah,
luckily, because I started before I started my co-op. They hired me on for the summer because they needed someone. And then he was like, oh, I'll just pay you through your co-op. It's fine.
yeah,
But everyone else didn't get paid. So you're going to these sites, you're doing all this work and you're free labor, but you're also learning a lot and it's something on your resume.
hmm,
So it does kind of work out. I think it worked in my favor, not even just because I got paid, but because I got set up with the companies that I did.
right.
Because all three of the companies I worked for before I started my own, they were all connected through kind of like the same contractor. And then because I worked for them, other people knew me, so it was easier to get work. And
That's
even now,
brilliant.
people are like, "Oh yeah, you know this guy," and I was like, "Yeah, I worked for him." But it depends on which, I think, company you get set up with in your co-op is the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a builder here in Cambridge that when I was just being a foreman, okay, that's our 10-minute mark there. When I was being a foreman for them, we got summer students, and
Hmm.
the kids didn't want to learn and they didn't want to work and wouldn't show up on time. So they just turned into laborers. Like, you weren't teaching them because they were never going to do it. They wouldn't, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it was kind
Oh
of a
yeah.
bummer. But I always thought that like some kids somewhere should be here because
Hmm.
they would be excelling. Um,
It's very
y-
touch and go. So you either get absolutely awful students, which
mhm,
was a lot of the ones I got. They did not want to work, they did not want to be there. But I did get a good few that wanted to be there. And I only got about 10 kids because I would get about two a semester, and then I got one from the college around. So I probably had a good like chunk that wanted to actually do the work and ended up staying in the field but had to go back to school or something, or went to like a different like renos instead of full framing.
mhm.
But they pushed and worked hard. So it was nice, but you do get a lot of not so good kids.
It's sad to watch the good ones leave where you're just like,
I know.
no, like just don't you want more money or something? Like Don't
I
just
totally
stick
tried to
around.
talk the girl to not going back to school. I was like, come on, just drop out. It's okay. Just stay with me.
And then on the inside, you're just like, I'm such a bad person. You know what though? I know a lot of people that went to college and university, and I bet you 20% of them are using it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? If somebody had just like tapped me on my shoulder and was like, "You want to build houses?" When I was in high school, I was in sales for a long time, believe it or not.
that's
That
pretty
was
cool.
kind of, what's that? Oh, I loved it.
That's cool, yeah.
Sales was wicked, and the first place that I got into was knocking on doors selling Sprint Canada, so it was like it was a learning curve. But it taught you a lot, right, of like,
Mhm.
I don't know how to talk to people, I guess. But if somebody had stuck me into framing or construction at that point in my life, I would have taken off. So, okay, you mentioned it was like love at first sight when you got on there, right? And you started
Oh
working and
yeah,
you knew that that's what you wanted to do. So
day one.
I was like a veteran sales guy. Like I was very good at it. Everybody enjoyed me. I was like running the teams, like that kind of stuff. And I was on site for like 2 hours and I was like, I fucking love this.
Yeah.
I knew. I knew right away. As soon as we started boarding, it was like this is where I should be. Because I was also enormous for my age, and like you were out of town, fucking around with your buddies. Like it was perfect. But when I started framing steel framing, it was like you fall in love right away. Where it's like
Oh yeah.
back then it was dot lasers. So you would find your outside corner of a wall and then you would run your track to it. Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. We had one of the DeWalt, like the shitty DeWalt lasers now that it's just like the red,
Oh,
the red cross. That was the
yeah.
best laser we had on site back
Really?
then. Yeah. And we used to just call it the plumb bob. It was like a Hilti dot laser. And we framed wicked with it, but it was like you're holding up a piece of track up here while trying to shoot it into the steel and try and like land it on the dot while some other idiot is on the other end holding it, shaking it around. It was brutal and nobody knew where it was going. So then when we first got into lasers, it was like, this is really easy now. Yeah.
You have to learn the hard way, or you don't accept the easy way.
Hmm. Yeah, I've definitely said that on this podcast. You should learn things the hard way the first time.
Mhm.
And it's like it might suck really bad that time, but it never happens again.
No,
Yeah.
you appreciate it more when you have all the nice tools.
Yeah, it's
Even better.
tapings like that. I was a hand finisher a long time ago. Um and I quit because it sucked. Like it was like this is miserable. I don't like it. And then a friend of mine started running auto tools and I saw it again and it was cool again. And I just picked up the tools and I was like, I love it. I taped stuff for free last year.
Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. I was doing a guy's house actually, and then Columbia. I wanted a set of the tomahawks. They're like big skimming blades.
Hmm.
And I just was like, I should get more content for them than just this house that I'm doing. So like a friend's basement, and then my cousin put in a new bathroom, and I was like, I fucking love this on Saturday and Sunday. People think
I
you're
hate
nuts, but
baking.
whatever. Honestly, though, if there was a playground somewhere that you could frame a house when come and go as you please, you'd absolutely be down for that.
100%.
Yeah, oh, totally. Okay, so let's take a break there. That seems like a good time to do that.